Cousins by Salley Vickers. Narrated by Maggie Mash, Gabrielle Glaister and Melody Grove.
Part 1. Heta. Chapter 1. When a persistent ringing startled me from a sleep of unusual contentment, I swear I knew it was Will. My grandmother claims that the women in our family are blessed with second sight. Certainly my intuition has always been sharp, but maybe it was simply that Will was the person in our family most likely to be the source of a late-night phone call. The phone had stopped ringing and had started again by the time my father got to it. I could hear him in the hall below sounding apprehensive and annoyed, and then I heard his voice change and become urgent. He was calling my mother, who joined him in the hall, and hearing the note in their combined tone, I got up and went halfway downstairs and sat on the landing, which is where I used to sit when eavesdropping. Through the banisters I could partly see my parents in their pyjamas. My father was holding my mother, who was crying. She rarely cried, so I knew this was serious. I waited a little on the landing, but the worry of not knowing what had happened was too great, so I ran down the remaining stairs. Heta! Dad, what is it? I was right. It was Will. At first I thought he must be dead, but it turned out to be worse than that. At the time I was immersed in the Brontes and saw myself as Emily, wild and poetical and in love with her brother. So it's hard to say how far I felt the gravity of what had happened as a real event, rather than a drama in my Bronte persona. All I understood then was that Will was in hospital, and that both my parents were to go at once, and that I was to drive with them to Cambridge. We left Dowlands, our house in Northumberland, there and then, and I have always believed that we were still all in our pyjamas, but reviewing everything now I can see that was unlikely. Maybe only I was. I certainly slept in the back of the car because I awoke to hear my parents talking in the voices people use when they don't want to be overheard. My father was saying, "It's Nat all over again." I know I heard this and that it isn't the construction of hindsight because my uncle Nathaniel was hardly ever mentioned and his name had a special allure for me. He was my father's elder brother and was killed in a climbing accident, the kind of event which my tragic imagination relished. I had written...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?